Once, when I was around 8 or 9 years old, I saw something that I will never forget. My family and I lived in a house in northern central Virginia, located in multiple Civil War battlefields. This particular morning was one like another. I didn't have school, and my mom asked me to get the mail for her as she was busy in the kitchen. I walked outside and started descending the porch stairs when I saw something across the street standing off the side. She looked around my age. She had a pale skin and curly blonde hair with thick ringlet on either side of her face. She was wearing a white sundress with a pink ribbon sash across the waist, with a matching bonnet and a white slipper shoes. The dress had puffy sleeves and her hands were hidden by skirt of the dress. I couldn't see her face as she appeared to be looking down at the ground. I got excited thinking a new friend had moved into the neighborhood. I was going to introduce myself, but I had just brushed my teeth and thought I had paste around my mouth. I looked down to wipe my mouth, looked up, and she was gone without a trace. I found out later that I'm not the only person who had seen her. Two kids down the street had also seen her in their yard and described her perfectly. I'm 24 now and just found out 2 or 3 weeks ago that my younger brother's friend also saw her one night while driving on a road. He also described her perfectly, the fear and panic in his voice evident. I started working as a nurse at a nursing home this week. I also consider myself agnostic, so this story is shaking me a bit. Today I was caring for a resident who is hours away from passing. I began to praying out loud for her. She had check player music playing in the back. Suddenly, she began to breathing differently, faster and louder. The music began to glitching and keeps repeating, "Jesus loves me, Jesus loves me," in English. This went on for a minute before resuming the song and back in check. I'm trying to find an explanation, but really can't find one. My twin and I had an adjoining bedrooms, and she had to enter my room to exit the house. We shared in experiences. If she got hurt, I would have sympathy pain, etc. She always would come over to my bed in the night complaining she heard something or had a bad dream. One night she called out to me, "Sissy, can you come to my bed?" I refused and told her to come to me. She replied she couldn't and begged me. I could hear in her voice something was wrong. I got up and walked to the light switch to turn on the lights and looked through a door. I saw a tall, dark, hooded figure at the bottom of her bed. It turned and looked at me. There was no face, only void. I immediately flipped the light switch on and it was gone. Before I could say anything, my sister asked, "Did you see it?" Chills ran down in my spine. She said, "Did you see that tall dark thing at the bottom of my bed? It's been watching me all night." I'm not a believer in ghosts, but I cannot explain what we saw together that night so many years ago. She is convinced it was something evil. To this day, I don't know. When I was around 6 years old, I saw something very, very scary that sometimes even gives me chills to this day. I was in my room with my grandma and I asked her where was a toy bear that I liked. She said it was in her room and the lights were out. When I was about to turn the lights on, I saw it. It was right in the corner. A boy, a little bit taller than me, had shorts, no shirt, relatively skinny and short hair. What was even weirder than that, he was emanating some kind of smoke, a dark smoke or something. I felt like something was very wrong and he started to walk towards me while I froze. I could see his eyes, but that's about it. No expression because his body was almost entirely darkness. Then I felt someone behind me. It was my grandma with a shocked look on her face. She turns the light on and it disappeared, but some traces of smoke flew off the window. What scared me the most was the reaction from my grandma. She was scared shirtless and drove me to some kind of church or spiritual center. I guess it was to make sure that it doesn't happen again. It worked, but still, her room still gives me creeps to this day. When I was in my early 20s, I was staying at my friend's house. It was a big and old house that didn't give off any weird vibe. That afternoon, I was walking through the living room which was pitch black, curtains closed, and no lights on. I ended up tripping on a vacuum cleaner. I was about to fall when I felt a hand on my chest push me back up. No one was there. I was a little freaked but brushed it off and went on with my life. I went to bed later and woke up during the night to see a lady sitting at the end of my bed. She was wearing an old-looking nurse uniform with a white bandana. She was just watching me. I didn't feel scared or unsafe. It was just calm feeling. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, she was gone. That morning, I told my friends and her parents about it. Her mother went and grabbed a book from the shelf, full of old photos. Their house used to be a place where people would come to give birth, like a hospital, but just for birthing and stuff. While looking through the book, I saw a picture of the midwife I saw. It was an odd experience and not at all creepy. I like to think she was making sure I was okay and keeping me safe. When I was little, a broom was resting on the kitchen and felt completely opposite of where it was leaning on its own. I also had a toy car with lights on and it made noise. It would go off on its own, so my parents took out the batteries. It still went off every night and eventually they got rid of it. Recently, me, my mom and some other family were at my great-grandmother's house in one of the bedrooms late at night. I started to get really cold to the point where I started shaking and shuddering. But no one else was cold. I asked my mom to touch my arm to verify. She said I felt very cold. I left the room and put on a blanket. That room is known for the closest shaking at night. When my mom and her siblings were kids, my uncle swear he has seen old short soldier dude that would go through the walls of that house multiple times. The broom and the cold room are the only experience I remember. Everything else was told to me by my family. As a kid, I remember being home alone one day while watching TV on the couch in my living room. It was of course daylight outside and the light in that room was on. I was sitting on the end section where you rest your arm on the couch. So while I was sitting there watching whatever was on TV, that for some reason looked to my left to find a girl standing there. Heck, I couldn't even tell if she was younger or a teenager because of how tall she looked, to the point that her head looked like it almost touched the ceiling fan, and the way she looked like a girl from The Ring of Grudge because her hair covered her face. Her clothes looked like she was wearing modern day clothing that looked like a tank top and underwear, so I'm guessing she was wearing pajamas. The presence she gave me off made me feel uncomfortable and scared because all she did was stand there and stare at me, not moving. This scared me so bad that I had to look away for a second, then back to her, then back to find her gone, as if she vanished in the thin air in a split second. I don't know what to think of this experience. When I was in high school, so around 2007ish, I was downstairs in the doorway of the bathroom talking to my mom. It was the morning time and she was brushing her hair in the mirror as I was talking to her. Her TV was in the bedroom right next to us, but the volume was pretty low. As I was studying there, she and I heard someone or something whisper my name. It was sort of loud whisper. She and I stopped talking and moving and stared at each other as if to say, "Did you hear that?" We looked around the house and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, and still to this day, we have no idea where it came from. I was walking down a dark street around 7 p.m. Being an idiot, I was wearing all dark clothes. Nobody would have able to see me walking. I came to a small crosswalk, if you could really even call it that, and it was across 4 lanes of traffic. I pressed the button to cross, and of course, the light wasn't working. I'm very careful when it comes to crossing the street, so I made sure there was absolutely no car before crossing. Now to truly understand what happened, I have to explain that this is an empty crosswalk. There are no bushes, no signs, nothing in the road. Just a street from one end to another. I stepped out and started walking. About halfway though, someone grabbed my purse. I mean really grabbed hard enough I stumbled back a little. I spun around expecting to find somebody trying to rob me, but saw nothing. Right at that moment, a car went flying by at probably 50 miles an hour, right where I was just stepped. They wouldn't be able to see me or have an indication. I was in the crosswalk since the light wasn't working. If whatever that was hadn't stopped me, I would have been killed instantly. I don't know it was a guardian or a figment of imagination, intuition, whatever. But I know that it saved my life. About 20 years ago, my grandfather got very sick and was getting closer to the end. And we all knew, so we all spent as much time with him as we could. One evening he was having a bath and we heard him starting yelling, "You better get out of here right now. You need to leave. My family is waiting for me out there. I am not going anywhere yet. Get out." My grandfather goes in to check because it scared us. We knew no one had went in the bathroom. He eventually got better from the illness, and few years later my aunt finally told me what happened that day. My grandfather told my aunt that people that have passed on showed up to take him. It was supposed to be his time. They told him he needed to get ready, that he had to go tonight, but we were all sleeping over and he said he could not leave us. He could not go knowing we were all at the same house with him. He needed more time with his family. He lived for 10 more years.